first-year head coach last year in Mike Elko. Really solid first season with the Aggies. Led Texas A&M to an 8-5 record, their best record in 3 years. Making that even more impressive was the fact that redshirt freshman Marcel Reed started most of the year at quarterback, despite entering the season as the backup. He's a dynamic runner who got a little bit better as a passer to really take the next step for Texas A&M in that offense. But they lost some key defensive linemen in the NFL too. But they do have one of the best linebackers in the country and in the draft in Torian York, and a solid defensive line in front of him. Texas A&M will need its secondary to improve, though. They only had 98th best coverage grade last year at 67.3. But Dalton, this offense might have the best run game in all of college football.
I mean, you just look at the names in this backfield: Marcel Reed, Le'Veon Moss, right? Then you think about Kevin Concepcion, who's a dynamic runner who could get in the backfield if he wanted to. I know he's a receiver, but he can get in the backfield. It looks natural. Terry Bussey, you can handle. The number of jet sweeps and jet actions you're going to see in this offense because you have those two guys, and then you have Moss and Reed in the backfield. There are going to be teams certain weeks that have a hard time just finding the football against Texas A&M, and what Colin Klein now can do with Marcel Reed established as the starter. Now, Reed was up and down last year. He gave him a jolt with his athleticism, but we have to remember, he didn't go into last season as the starter. It was Connor Wegman, and Reed did a lot of nice work beating Florida, right? Came in, led the comeback against LSU, beat that team. So I think you're talking about a potentially dynamic running game with the offensive line. You talk guys like Trey Zune and Armaj Reed Adams that can really maul people up front. Mike Elko and Colin Klein they're building a very physical team here, right, on both sides of the ball. But I think especially offensively, they're going to run the living hell out of the football this year.
The number 3 offensive line in the country for us, the number 5 running back unit in the country for us, and probably the 2 best rushers at wide receiver in the country, and Kevin Concepcion and Terry Bussey too.
An odd category, but you're not wrong.
Yeah. And then Marcel Reed is like a top 5 rusher at quarterback, probably.
And a healthy Le'Veon Moss. And I shouldn't forget about Amari Daniels either.
And Ruben Owens. And
I mean, they've got
Smith is there too.
They've got guys. I mean, I wonder if there's going to be games where they just don't even bother throwing the football.
Yeah.
I know coaches like that. We used to have that down running the wing tee in St. Pete. If Coach Fab didn't have to throw the football, he would not do it.
Colin Klein's a perfect OC for that kind of offense.
Darn right he is.
The way he ran that Kansas State offense, yeah, absolutely. Now, it's kind of the same with Missouri in their preview. Do they have the passing game to complement that run game? Because Marcel Reed last year, yes, he did come in as what should have been the backup quarterback, but a 64.6 passing grade last year, only 114th in the country, 29.4 passing grade under pressure, was the 4th worst in the Power 4. Listen, I mentioned before, got the running backs, got a great offensive line, got the receivers now too. He just has to take the next step as a passer, Dalton. And what did you see from him when you watched the tape?
A lot of good things, honestly, for such a young kid coming in a high-pressure environment when he wasn't supposed to start. And look, the first thing you notice, dynamic runner, one of just 8 quarterbacks in the country with 300 rushing yards on design runs and as a scrambler. So he can do it either way, and you can add him into the option game with that. That part's dynamic. 22 explosive runs, 17 missed tackles forced on just 108 carries, both really solid numbers for a quarterback. And to me, what I saw from his best throws was being able to throw down the middle of the field. 80.5 passing grade with 12 of his 15 touchdowns coming between the numbers. So I think it's going to be about those option looks and then attacking down the seams. And obviously Colin Klein's going to add the screen game in there as well as some of those athletes he's got. But that's what I see as a dangerous athlete who likes to throw down the middle. The big thing that really drags everything down is the play under pressure. I get it. He was young, high pressure environment, trying to compete in the SEC. 29.4 passing grade under pressure last year. And look, he's athletic enough to create. He can do some things on the move. He's playing really good defenses every week. I think that's what you just need to see is sometimes in the pocket, a little bit more poise and not being, so willing to run outside the pocket so often. So I just think when you look at Reed, get the poise, get a whole offseason, you're the guy now, right? Just calm down, make the plays you're supposed to. Don't try to do too much under pressure because you got a ton of athletes around you who can make plays. I think with this supporting cast, he could make a big jump this season because it's not so improvised when it comes to him playing. Oh, Wegman's hurt. All right, you got to get in there. Oh, Wegman's not playing well against LSU. You got to get in there. Now it's just his team, and I think he's going to benefit a lot from that.
We actually have Chris Cobb in the chat saying Marcel Reed will be in New York for the Heisman ceremony next year. That's a call right there for Chris Cobb. I like that.
That's a long shot call.
Colin Klein was in New York, wasn't he, for the Heisman ceremony?
He was.
Yeah.
I forget which year that was, but he was. That is.
I believe that was
I'll say this.
Manziel year.
Over the next month and a half, we will hear crazier things than that. Because with the way that Reed can run the football and potentially run this offense with all these guys around him, that's not the craziest thing we're going to hear this summer.
Dog in DC, the good question, saying, well, they lost the top receiver last year, Noah Thomas, who transferred over to Georgia. How would that affect them? I will say A&M did a great job in the portal of addressing wide receiver. They added Kevin Concepcion, who's a top 10 receiver in the country for me from NC State. And Mario Craver had a great freshman year last year at Mississippi State, too. Only about 400 receiving yards, but I thought he was really, really good and got open a lot last year and wasn't really taken advantage of enough. And then Terry Bussey, entering his true sophomore year, 5-star recruit coming out of high school, just could do anything for an offense, a rusher or a receiver. Yeah, of course, Noah Thomas and his size at 6'6" is going to hurt losing that, and they don't really have that kind of size right now at receiving core. But what they do have is a lot of really great athletes.
They got burners.
And Amari Niblack at tight end, too.
They've got burners, man. They've got some guys who can fly.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the star, though, of the offense. It's not from that receiving core or in that running back unit. It's actually in the offensive line. And the best offensive guard in the country right now is Armaj Reed Adams, who transferred in from Kansas last year. And he was second among all guards in the Power 4 in overall grade, run blocking grade, and wins above average metric. Dalton, the only one who's above him in all three of those metrics. Our king, Willie Lampkin.
Oh, of course, Willie.
Our king.
How could I forget Willie?
And you can't live up to that kind of legend right there. So it's understandable.
L.A. Ram, Willie Lampkin.
Of course, Willie Lampkin. So Armaj Reed Adams is only behind Willie Lampkin in PFF grade, run blocking grade, and wins above average. Powerful player, 6'5", 330 pounds. He can excel in any run blocking scheme. In fact, he led all Power 4 guards last year in gap run blocking grade, and he was fourth in zone blocking grade too. So Armaj Reed Adams with that run game with Marcel Reed and those running backs and even those receivers, Armaj Reed Adams running behind him and the rest of what should be a great offensive line. I think they brought back all of their top 6 offensive linemen from last year from already a great O-line. That is going to be the heart and soul of this team next year.
It is hard not to buy this rushing attack for multiple reasons, for sure. And I'll tell you what Texas A&M does too. They stop the run.
Yeah.
And that starts with the captain of their defense, your number 2 linebacker in college football. I know the number 1 linebacker in Trevor Sycamores' heart, if he's still watching. Torian York, the middle linebacker, look through 2 seasons as a true freshman and true sophomore. He's been nothing short of fantastic. Since 2023, 59 run defense stops, most in the Power 4, right? So you're talking about a guy just really instincts beyond his years, excellent tackler, could get a little bit better in coverage, but that'll get there. I think, did Trevor throw a Nick Bolton comp in there?
Yeah, he did.
That's high praise. I mean, you're talking about a 2-time Super Bowl.
Legendary Missouri player.
2-time Super Bowl champion, legendary college player. So when you're talking about somebody like Nick Bolton, for a guy who's just going into his true junior year as a linebacker at Texas A&M, it's a leader of a really good defense, right? And I think they do need to clean up some things you mentioned in coverage as well. But they got a lot of talent. They have York. They have Scooby Williams next to him. I know you're high on Cassius Howell. They have Will Lee in the secondary still, the blanket. They got some other transfers on that defense. So I think you're talking about a team that got a lot of balance. They just have to put it together and win the big games.
Absolutely. You got TJ Searcy transferring in too at edge. Tyler Onyedum, kind of a down year at Iowa State last year. I believe he battled injuries last year. 2023 was great though at Iowa State. So you got him transferring at D tackle too. Should be a great defense. And of course Mike Elko, a great defensive coach too.
Absolutely.
They're always gonna have a pretty good defense. And then the other question is, can the passing game kind of complement what should be an elite run game next year too? Trevor even saying Torian York Hive right now in the chat right now. Dawn, I'll come out first and say it. 7.5 is way too low for this win total. I'm going over.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule, but that seems off.
I think it's a top 15 team in the country that could compete for a playoff.
I could be in on that. I could see them winning 9 or 10 games. I'm in on over 7.5. I don't know if that's an old number, if that needs to be tweaked, or if there's something they know that we don't know. But I get it. Look, Notre Dame, week 3 is going to be a tough game.
Notre Dame, yeah.
Although, if you were talking about a physical defense, that was a close game last year. It's not like they got blown out by Notre Dame last year. They could beat Notre Dame, especially with Notre Dame's quarterback situation. And then I go, okay, Florida, yeah, LSU. Yeah, they beat LSU last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they played Missouri last year, but
Auburn could be tough. That's at A&M.
Sure. You get South Carolina at home.
At Texas, the last game of the year is tough.
That is what it is. But if 7.5 is the number, I'm taking the over.
It's still 7.5 too.
we'll see how the standings shake out after we get all this going, but they're probably a top 5 team in the SEC for me.
I would say so. I would say they're a top 15 team in the country easily, and I think, they could be a playoff contender if Marcel Reed develops as a passer and new pieces on defense step up.
Is it just that part? Is it just Reed they're doubting?
I don't know.
Because I think established with a full offseason as the starter, I think he could actually get a lot better in this.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, you go into a season with Connor Wigman last year, who's a lot different than Reed. Completely different quarterback. Now you're building this thing around him. And this is the type of player Colin Klein wants.
Yes.
Right? So I'm in on this. I'm in over 7.5.
7.5 that's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm as sure on that one as I've been on any of these today.
Over's like minus 170, but still, that's a really low line for Texas A&M. I would have said like at least 8.5. Probably not 9.5, but like that's still,
or at least lengthen the odds a little bit. I mean, man, I'm in on that.
They could be a playoff contender.
If they don't win 8 games, they have a problem.
No, they absolutely could be a college football playoff contender next year if, again, Marcel Reed develops more as a passer. But like I said, they have all of the surrounding talent offensively for him to really take a next step next year and his first real season as a starter.